Alright, so this question says, Anne, Barb, and Carl are trading cards. At first, Anne gives Barb 2/3 of her cards. Then Barb gives Carl 1/3 of her cards. Finally, Carl gives Anne 3/5 of his cards. At this point, Anne, Barb, and Carl end up with 12, 8, and 6 cards, respectively. How many cards did each have in the beginning? Now, so we could focus on the individual parts of this question. I'm going to make each important sentence a different color. That is a very dark blue, and it may be confusing. I'm going to make it different. Actually, I think that was gray. Alright, now to make a table. I'm going to need a 3x5 with this question. There we go. I'm going to leave a space and write each of their names. Anne, Barb, and Carl. Can't highlight. Oh, there we go. There. Now it's centered. Okay, so for this we're going to be working backwards. So first I'm going to write 12, 8, and 6. Okay, and I'm also going to make it blue to match the sentence it represents. There. Now onto the, it says, finally, Carl gives Anne 3/5 of his cards. Because we're working backwards, it's not really finally. The part we're focusing on is where it says, Carl gives Anne 3/5 of his cards. Okay, so we know that Carl gave Anne 3/5. So that must mean the 6 he has left over must be those other 2/5. Alright, now I'm going to make a fraction diagram to represent the fifths. I'm going to divide it into 5 pieces. Note that I probably can't make these equal, but I need them to be equal. Yeah, those aren't very equal. I'll try to make it as best as I can. There, good enough. Now, because Carl gave Anne 3/5, I'm going to shade in 3/5. My shading will not be perfect, and I do not want it to get into the other 2/5, but if it does, then and just keep in mind that I cannot make it perfect, but I mean to shade 3/5. Oh, almost there. So close. That's okay though. And now it says Carl, in the green sentence, it said Carl gives Anne 3/5. He's also left with 6, because after the green sentence, in the blue sentence, it states that he has 6 cards left. Now that means those 6 cards must be the 2/5 he should have left. Since there are 2/5 and 6 cards, I will divide 6 by 2. That equals 3. So that means that each fifth represents 3 cards. And these ones too, even the ones he gave to Anne. Now, since we're working backwards to find the original amount, I'm going to take those cards back from Anne and give them back to Carl. There are 3/5, and each one represents 3 cards. 3 times 3 is 9. So it's 6 plus 9 for Carl. 6 plus 9, of course, is 15. And we're going to take away 9. Minus 9. 12 minus 9 equals 3. And Barb played no role in this part of the question, so we're going to keep her at 8 cards. Also going to make this the same color as the sentence it represents. There, we should have no further need of this fraction diagram. So I will delete it. Now we're on to the yellow sentence. It says Barb gives Carl 1/3 of her cards. Well, if she gave Carl 1/3, then the 8 she has must be 2/3. So we're going to make another fraction diagram to see all of her thirds. This time we divide the circle into 3 parts for thirds. Okay. Again, I cannot make this equal, but I tried. I want it to be equal, and I intend it to be equal. I also intend to shade in 1/3, representing the 1/3 that Barb gave to Carl. My shading will not be equal, but I mean it to be. This is good enough. Now, if Barb gave Carl 1/3, and Barb must be left with 2/3. She's also left with 8 cards. So that means those 2/3 must be 8 must represent those 2/3. So since there are 2/3 left and 8 cards, we divide 8 by 2, of course. 8 divided by 2 is 4, so each third must represent 4, even the one she gave to Carl. And of course, we're working backwards, so I'm going to give that third back to Barb. She has 8, so it's 8 plus 4, which is that other third she gave to Carl. That is 12. Now, for Carl, we're going to take away 4. It's 15 minus 4. That's 14 minus 4. I almost made a mistake. And of course, Anne played no role in the yellow sentence, so her number remains the same, 3. I'm going to get rid of the fraction diagram since we should have no further need of it. And I will make this the same color. Yellow, of course, to match the yellow sentence it represents. And now for the red sentence. Since we're working backwards, this is the last sentence we have to do. So keep in mind we get our answer now. Alright, so it says, at first, Anne gives Barb 2/3 of her cards. We don't need the at first. We only need the information that Anne gives Barb 2/3 of her cards. Anne is also left with 3 cards that must be the 1/3 she has left. Alright, so now time to make another fractions diagram. And we divide it into thirds, into 3 pieces, because they're thirds. There we go. And now I will shade in the 1/3, 2/3 of course, that Anne gave to Barb. Keep in mind that, of course, my shading will not be perfect, but I mean it to be perfect. Well, I don't mean it to be perfect. I just want to represent 2/3 in the shading. This seems fairly good. All right, now Anne is left with 1/3. She also has 3 cards left, so that means those 3 cards must be that 1/3. Let's write that. And of course, these thirds must also represent 3. And since we're working backwards, we're going to give those 2/3 back to Anne. Those 2/3 are 6 cards, so 3 plus 6, because 3 is is the number she had in the yellow line. Well, I cannot speak today. There we go. 3 plus 6 equals 9. And now Barb, we must take away 6 from hers. 6 minus 12 minus 6 equals 6. And Carl played no role in this part of the question, so we will keep him at 11. Also going to get rid of this fractions diagram and make it everything red. Now that we have our answer, 9, 6, and 11, 9, 6, and 11, we're going to check our work. And to check our work, we are going to work forwards in this question, keeping our answers on this table. We have 6, 9, 6, and 11. We'll get rid of all of this. And now we just work forwards. I'm also going to change it all to black because the colors will confuse us now. Now we do the red sentence. It says, at first Anne gives Barb 2/3 of her cards. Well, 2/3 is 6, of course, because she has 9, that must be 3/3, of course. If she gives Anne and 2/3, that will be 6. So for her, we do 9 minus 6. 9 minus 6, of course, is 3. And Barb, we will give her 6. So 6 plus 6 equals 12. And Carl played no role in this part of the question, so we will keep him at 11 cards. Now on to the green. It says, finally, Carl gives... Wait, I missed the yellow. Almost made a mistake there. It says, then Barb gives Carl 1/3 of her cards. That was a close one. Okay, Barb has 12 cards. If we divide 12 by 3, we should get at 4. So that means each third represents 4. And if we are to give Carl 1/3, that would be 4. So that is 12 minus 4 for Barb. That's 8. And then Carl, of course, gets 4. 11 plus 4, and that equals 15. And Anne played no role in this part of the question, so we will keep her at 3 cards. Now we go on to the green sentence. It says, finally, Carl gives Anne 3/5 of his cards. Carl right now has 15 cards. If we were to divide 15 by 5, we would get 3. So each third represents, each fifth, of course, represents 3 cards. 3 times 3 is 9, so we take away 9 from him. 15 minus 9, and that equals 6. And of course, we give her 9. He has 3 plus 9. 9, and that equals 12. And Barb played no role in this part of the question, so we still keep her at 8 cards. Now, we checked our work. We've done the question using our original answers, and it gave us the number stated in the blue sentence. We checked it backwards and forwards, so we know our answers 9, 6, and 11 for Carl, Barb, and Anne. Well, for Anne, Barb, and Carl is correct. So we know our answer is correct.